Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Mystery Temple. My name is Mark Sabbas, and my intention with this podcast is to lend a platform to all those with stories to tell, stories that need to be heard that will help to unlock higher levels of consciousness and expose those secrets that have long been hidden from humanity. Simultaneously, we will be uplifting and elevating the consciousness and frequency of the planet as a whole and helping us to remember who we truly are in the process and reactivate our unique, latent, psychic, and spiritual capabilities, just as they did in the ancient mystery schools. But none of this would be possible without my good friend Adrian. So, Adrian, you want to introduce yourself and state your
Hi,
intention?
thanks, Mark. Um, my name is Adrian Solomon. I am co-hosting this experience for you with Mark and our guest today, Beth. And we are creating a space for people to be activated, to remember who you are, to share and ascend together. That's my intention, and to provide everyone here a platform to share now that we can do that. So thank you.
Amazing, amazing. All right,
Yeah.
well, welcome to the show. Our inaugural guest, Beth Noyes. Beth, we hung out a couple years ago, well, last year actually, at the Journey to Truth conference, and Beth is just an amazing person. She has one of the most uplifting, inspiring, and also corroborated cases of benevolent ET contact that I think I've ever heard. And we will go over that a little bit today, and we'll show pictures on the screen. So we're gonna go over that whole story. And Beth also has a lot more to share with us about regressions that she did, about the possibility of space arcs buried beneath the Earth. And Beth is also part of we are all part of Tony Rodriguez, his uh, tier three remote viewing and meditation group. So we might also go into that, go into a little remote viewing and experiences with group healing meditation as well. So welcome, Beth. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be your first guest, first of many, and I can't wait to get into this. So thank you.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I sincerely mean that, Beth. What I've heard, your contact case is one of the most inspiring and really corroborated cases I've ever heard, and we're going to get into that. But I kind of wanted to lead into it, the story of your contact, because I think that in order to have these types of incredible experiences, we have to be at a certain level of spiritual vibration to be able to even have these experiences in the first place. So I just wanted to give you the floor and let you talk a bit about your background, perhaps what led you into these kinds of, I guess, experiences or phenomenon, your kind of your spiritual journey and an awakening process. Because I know you've talked a lot about astral travel, which you did a lot, at least when you were younger, and that's something that I have experienced with a lot as well. So if you want to take the floor and tell us a little bit about your background and your upbringing, and we could get into that we can lead into your contact experience as well.
Sure. My first memory, one of my first memories was looking at a Civil War ghost. I was 3 years old, putting pennies into a bank, and I looked up and there was a full body apparition. I drew him. I found him later, maybe a year ago. I finally found this guy on the internet, but he's a Civil War soldier. His name was Marshall Goody. That was my first contact. Um, and I grew up, we lived, my dad was in the military. Um, Mom was stay at home. I have four siblings now. That's a long story, but I have three siblings I grew up with, and pretty much normal. Some odd things maybe in third and fourth grade being part of the gifted and talented groups, teachers testing our psychic abilities, and then going for bus rides where we had no idea where we were going, and I don't remember them. That's a
Mhm.
different story.
Yes.
But getting back to this with my spirituality, I'd say right when I was maybe 19 years old, I met a friend. Her name was Ellen, and her mom was a psychic, and she taught me how to meditate, astral project. I found out later what I did once was bilocate, and I had no idea that that was even a thing. So we would do weekly meditations. We were not chasing UFOs. We weren't doing anything like that, but we would go to a channeling group her mom would lead. And I believe that the being was an extraterrestrial, that you could see her face change when it would come in. So that was different. So it was all kind of new to me. And then, yeah,
Yeah,
so
was this in the 80s, Beth? I'm sorry to interrupt
yeah,
you.
this was in 89.
Mm,
This was in 1989. It was about a full 8 months before we got taken. So, but we were doing it every week, and we would hit astral projection every time. We'd be able to corroborate what we saw out of body. The one time I bilocated, which was really odd, Ellen taught me. She just said, you don't think of the name or the place. What you do is you feel what that feels like when you're with that person. So I had a boyfriend up in Minnesota, and I was in Illinois, and I was just feeling this person. And all of a sudden I was in his car. I remember the time was 4 o'clock, and I look in the radio station. Yeah, I'm not from Minnesota, so I wasn't at the time. Radio station 92.5. I saw the sign on the road said 12 West. I saw these twin towers. They were copper colored. And I saw a mall this way, and I saw the shirt he was wearing in his car. So after I woke up from this, what I thought was a cool meditation, which I now know is a bilocation, I called him up and I said, were you driving west on 12 at 4 o'clock, listening to 92.5? And it was by these copper colored towers, which are the Carlson Towers in Ridgedale. And there was a mall, and it kind of freaked him out because he's like, yeah, that was exactly what was happening. So I don't know if that's considered astral projection or bilocation. Truly, I don't know. But
mm.
all I know is I was there, and it was really the first time I ever confirmed that you could do that with absolute confirmation.
That's absolutely intriguing. And I also have experience with astral travel, astral projection, and I've heard also about people, even remote viewers from the military program, very experienced remote viewers who have these sort of bilocation experiences. So it really doesn't matter what you call it. The label is not important. I think the experience itself is really what matters, what's truly important, and how the experience affects you. Because at least in my experience, this my own experiences with astral projection as well as lucid dreaming, they've profoundly affected me. They help to raise my consciousness and realize the power of consciousness itself, and realize that we're also more than our body, and our our scope of reality is very limited. We're kind of just existing in this narrow frequency band, and there could be other beings, other entities who exist outside of that narrow range of visible light that we could see in other planes of existence that we could interact with. So, have you had any uh, experience with kind of perceiving? I mean, we could lead into your big contact experience, but I wanted to ask
Sure.
beforehand, did you have any experience with other types of beings or entities before that experience?
Uh, I mean, I always had to sleep with a closet light on, and had to check under my bed, and had to always check out the house before I went to bed. So I don't know if I had something happen and I just didn't remember it. I know one time when I was 5, which this is a really weird thing to bring up, but when I was 5 years old, um, I took an apple, I put it on the kitchen table, and I just said, "You will remember this the rest of your life. You can never forget this. You have to remember everything around you right now and look at this apple and never forget it." And I mean, unless we were getting messed with our memories, or if it was I wanted to bring my memories from a past life in, but why would a 5-year-old find it so important to remember this event, something so benign in the future? So I always thought that was really weird, that
Mm.
I thought that was important to remember that apple. You know what I mean?
It, yeah, Adrian, you look like you have a you have a
Yeah,
question.
you
Do you have
say
any questions, man?
something.
That's interesting that you wonder if it was a memory that was messed with,
Mhm.
and that it was at that age, because we were putting that together, um, as far as screen memories and identifying some. My personal one that I had was just one that was related to something red, and it was very scary. And when I look at it now, I'm not scared of it. It almost seems like it was designed to have you not look at it. So this doesn't seem scary like that, but the red element and the screen memory. Uh,
And this was by Minot, North Dakota, which is a huge military. Um, that's where we were living at the time I did this. It was in Minot, North Dakota. I think there's nuclear silos and stuff there. So I don't know. I'm just speculating, but it was just something weird. Then as far as
Oh,
other things, you know, I could hear what I thought were, deceased people talking to me, and I could see auras around people when I was younger and still can sometimes. And but definitely empath. I can get blasted with an emotion if you walk by. I've learned how to guard myself, but I'm very sensitive to emotion. Um, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're super open at a young age.
Mhm.
And, I think that, we have our abilities kind of open, especially, for star seeds, which we'll get into, but we have our abilities kind of open at a young age. And I think that this system tries to do everything it can to tell us that we're crazy, that these things don't exist. They try to suppress, I think, our innate capabilities, but what we're doing is trying to reactivate them. And I know there's many institutions out there, never mind the U.S. military remote viewing program that's funded by the CIA, but also the Monroe Institute. They have some great methodologies to kind of react access these higher levels of consciousness and attune your brain waves so that you can experience phenomenon kind of out of your uh, localized field, which is very limited. So yeah, I think we should all be open to this phenomena. The CIA has a wealth of documents, which I know that we all have read or have seen on their own website, which talk about astral travel, which talk about remote viewing by location, all this psychic phenomena. So the military and the CIA know that this is real and they've used it. I mean, Project Stargate, now declassified, showing an army unit that was trained in remote viewing, for example. They studied it at Stanford for 20 plus years, funded by the CIA. So they know this stuff is real. But it's interesting that on a public level, I think this is shifting, but they've tried um, to deny it and try to, I think, purposefully suppress people from realizing their own potential of consciousness and realizing their own soul's potential and that they even have a soul in the first place. So it's a pretty wild world we live in. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Beth. And you can expound on whatever I'm saying if you want. But yeah, it sounds like you were trying to give your future self a message to remember that time in your life for whatever reason. Maybe our memories were suppressed or maybe you were meant to, something happened around that age that you were meant to remember, and you were telling yourself to remember. Because I think often we have experiences that could be on higher planes of existence, or even what we may call dreams that are more real than dream, and we might just not remember. So remembering, I think, is the exception. Um, so
I
we
was
could
gonna
get,
say,
yeah, you could
I
expound on
was
that.
gonna say, I remember too, when I was looking at it, I kept saying, this is real. This is
Yeah,
real. You know what I mean? I was anchoring in it. Now looking back, I was anchoring in a timeline or a focal point to just always be able to go back to check reality.
very interesting, because that's what people who practice like lucid dreaming, they do. They kind of have a totem to um, kind of anchor themselves in reality. It's kind of like what we saw in Inception, and
Mhm.
we're always doing reality checks. So that shows kind of even at an early age, you had this kind of developed metacognition, kind of awareness of your own thought processes and a questioning of reality itself, which honestly
Mhm.
is very advanced. For a young someone that age, and sounds like you were open, even seeing spirits. You're open to what's beyond our limited perceptual framework, to see beyond what reality normally tells us is possible. And you were practicing astral travel, and that could also open you up to some extraordinary experiences. So yeah, speaking of extraordinary experiences, I think Adrian, if you wanted to get the pictures up on the screen now, um, and feel free to jump in, Adrian, if you have any questions for Beth. But if you wanted to get the pictures of that Beth drew of her contact experience that happened, I believe, was this also in? We could go into it now. Was this also in 1989 when you were
Yes,
a
that was the,
teenager?
yeah. So, I mean, originally with my astral projection, my goal was to try to find God. I wanted to find heaven. I wanted to find God. So every time I'd astral voyage, that's where I was trying to go.
Hmm.
But so I don't know if that made me visible to different dimensions or whatever. But getting back to this, yeah, it was 2 o'clock in the morning on a summer night. And this was in Lake in the Hills, Illinois. My house was in there. I was laying down in my bed and I had my window open and I looked outside the window and I saw, looked like a helicopter coming in, and then I could see a beam of light coming out from it. Couldn't hear it. And then the light I could see went down and then focused right in my window, shone right on me. I was like, I still thought it was a helicopter. So I'm like, what the hell? I jumped up and I ran down the hall. And then the next picture, I'm sorry, I jumped fast, is just the next one is just me going down the hall and the light stayed on me through the wall. And then in my head, it said, we need you to come. I was scared at this point. I was freaked out. And it said, we need you to come with us. We won't take you until you say okay, is basically what I said. And then I said, okay. Next
Hmm.
picture is the next thing I saw. I don't remember getting lifted up. I don't remember floating through the ceiling. It was just like 1 second I was in the house, next second I was there. So I'm sitting at a console in what I would imagine be a spaceship, because I looked in front of me and there was like black and stars. And in front of me was a panel with lights. And then to the left of me was this he didn't even look at me, a little gray dude. He seemed friendly, but he was not interacting at all. He was just focused, or she was focused on the panel driving the ship. And then I see my friend Frank, and he's leaning forward and he goes, "This has been awesome." He screamed it at me and he pumped his fist. And I was like, okay, I wasn't scared. After that, I was not scared anymore. And even with him yelling, the little gray guy didn't react. It just like oblivious, just focused on its mission. So I
Do you
sat
think,
back.
just jump in question, sorry to interrupt you. Do you
Yeah, go
think
for
that
it.
the gray was biological, or do you think that, as we hear sometimes in UFO circles, it was kind of a android or whatever term you want to call it?
Can't
Uh,
that semi I thought about this a lot, and to me, what I'm thinking looking back, I think it was a little bit of both. So he felt like he
mm,
had some consciousness, but he was also created to be a worker. That was what he
mm,
was created to be. So I don't know if these other beings create this working class. I don't know, but it still felt like it had a consciousness, but not like you and I do.
right.
It had a very basic consciousness.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That definitely makes sense, judging from all the testimonies that we've heard of other stories about the Greys possibly being kind of biological robots or having a very limited consciousness. But I think it depends on a case by case basis. I don't think we should generalize all Greys are this way or
Right.
that way.
Yeah, this
But
guy was really friendly. He had a very calming effect on me. And
mm,
I remember his little jumpsuit was kind of a golder color and it was tight. And there was no emblems on it. There was no, like, how you hear different people say they have emblems or something or zippers. There's no zippers, no emblems. So it's just very basic. And I could,
mm,
but he did not feel threatening and he felt very pleasant. And then, yeah, that's just what I would imagine the back shot of us would be if we drove from, so I think we were in outer space for sure. I don't think we were in a MyLab or anything. Um, Went up into this bigger ship and it was a huge docking area. The bottom was flat and we flew in there and landed. And then the top was kind of rounded, but it was huge. And if I can remember the ship, it kind of seemed boxy on the outside, like boxy, like squared, rectangular. It wasn't like a smooth round spaceship. It seemed more like a boxy home base mothership. I don't know. But anyway, so we landed in the little port. It was really dark, except for there was one door that was really bright, and that's where we started walking to. And I don't remember walking out of the ship. And yeah, so then we were walking and it got lighter and lighter and lighter. And finally we come through this door and my eyes are like I couldn't see anything at first. It was so bright. And then all of a sudden I could focus in and I shout, "Where are the light bulbs?" I go, "Where are the light bulbs?" Because they couldn't see where any of the light was coming from. It was so bright. And those beings, I saw all those people in that room, and the beings all looked at me kind of like you don't talk up here, use your telepathy, because that was really obnoxious that I shouted in the room. It was really disturbing to everyone. So we didn't talk after that. I mean, communicated telepathically. Anyway, the people that were up
wow,
there, there's me and Frank going in, and then I recognized every single person except for the
wow.
taller beings. I worked with two of them. They were my bosses, Joey and Steve. My friend Joey, another Joey, who doesn't remember, Ellen, her mom, and then her mom's friend Brent, and then her mom's wife. It was kind of odd back then, but that's who was up there. And as I walk in, Ellen was on this white table, and there was a tall being next to her, and he was just taking this really flowing silvery cloth, and he would go counterclockwise and then clockwise. He would go it all like 5 or 6 times counterclockwise, and then the other way 5 or 6 times. It was like it was flowing on her aura, on her energy field. This thing was reacting to her energy field. It was just kind of floating across it. Um, these beings were about 6 feet, 5.5, almost 6 feet tall. They were lighter complected than the being that was in the ship. Their robes were really flowing silver. Um, there was, like I said, there was no source of light. It was so light, there was no shadows. Um, and then Ellen got off that table, you don't have to change it, but I'll just tell you, after Ellen got on the table, I got on the table, and because they told me it was my turn. And then so I laid down and they scanned me first counterclockwise and clockwise. And what it felt like is they were measuring our energy, measuring frequency, measuring our just where we're at, what if we have any injuries. Um, it just felt like they were kind of taking a reading, and then the other way they were trying to, it was sort of like a blessing. So one way
Uh,
was a reading, the other way was a blessing. And so I laid there and I was very, very calm. And these beings, their eyes were beautiful. They were like labradorite. Their eyes were really big. You could see them kind of turn color when they didn't turn their eyes, but when they turned their head, it would be like a different color. No hair, very little mouth. I don't remember their ears if they had any, and their teeny nose. Um, and everybody was kind of just grouped together over on the side, kind of talking back and forth. And after I got up and talking telepathically, not with their mouths.
mm,
After I got up, Ellen's mom, Bonnie, came to me and said, "Isn't this amazing? Isn't this wonderful? This is a gift." And then Brent came up and said the same thing. Ellen was talking to me, and then you can switch to the next picture. And then after I got to the table, that guy said, "Come over here," telepathically. So I walked over, and the white wall turned into a window. So it didn't open up, it just turned into a window. So I think whatever I think the ship itself reacts to their DNA, and they can telepathically create whatever they want in their ship or have it do. I don't know if it's because they have their DNA in the ship and it's like an extension of them. I'm just saying that it was very reactive to them. Anyway, so this being told me to look down, and I looked down, and we're about 3 stories high. So I saw this really pretty waterfall with these bioluminescent plants all along there. And at the bottom there was, the big pond, and then there was like a little path, and I saw those same little gray guys driving what looked like golf carts, which sounds really weird, but they were driving golf carts. And
uh,
so after I saw the little guys, I said, "Who are they?" And he said, "Those are workers." And I said, "Who are you?"
mm,
And he goes, "We're teachers. We've been here from the beginning. We take beautiful things from around and bring them to other planets," basically saying they take them up on their ship, tweak them so that they can go somewhere else. And in their, you know what I mean? They geo engineer, I guess is the word. And I don't know if they meant that for people too, if they meant do DNA with that. I don't know. But basically, they're watchers, guardians, have been here from the beginning. And then I said, I thought everybody's good. Then are you guys all good guys? And he said, "No, there's bad ones too."
uh, yeah,
So,
it's a game. Wow, just incredible.
but
Yeah,
that,
sorry to interrupt you.
oh no, that's
I was
okay.
just gonna say I think what they're saying is spot on because this is a game of duality that we live in this universe. We're meant to grow through the light and the dark. We're meant to grow through challenges. So I think anyone who says kind of, oh, they're only good ETs out there or they're only bad ETs out there, I think that's a little foolish because this game of duality does not end at the confines of our solar system. And how would you discern that these beings are good is first of all they ask for your consent
Mhm.
beforehand. So I don't think any negative abductions. I think we hear about negative abductions, all the time, but it's rare that you hear, and maybe this is purposeful, about positive kind of inviting on board, being invited on board a craft by positive benevolent beings. And you could just tell by their aura, their frequency, that they meant you no harm, that they were actually kind of doing what seemed like aura cleanses or on your body or aura scans from from what it seemed like. So this is just absolutely fascinating. I think we need to hear more cases about this. So yeah, you could continue with the experience. I was also going to ask,
Oh,
did they ever? tell you where they're from or
No, okay,
no.
so, well, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, the one other thing he said to me was, you've been given information that you'll remember when the time is right.
Okay.
So I was like, cool. Um, no, but I asked Frank maybe 3 years ago if he remembered where they were from, if we ever heard. And I said, this is just a memory that came up. I go, did they say you would call us Arcturian? And then he goes, that's it. Because I thought they said that, but I couldn't be sure. He's like, oh my God, that's what they said. But I don't know if they're what we call Arcturian. But he said, Frank and I recall them saying, you would call us Arcturian.
Mm,
That's not what they call themselves, but that's what
right.
they said.
Yeah, because Arcturian, Arcturus is a
Yeah.
Greek name, but
Yeah. It's just that you
but
would call us, but I think it just meant that they're benevolent, they're ancient,
right.
they've been around a long time and they're guardians and watchers and um they definitely cheer for us. They're watching over us. They're the good guys for sure. They're definitely we have good guys up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty clear. And they told you that they would be gifting these kind of modified bioluminescent plants
Yes.
to
That's what I
humanity.
heard.
Yeah, I think we've already seen because I've seen articles about certain bioluminescent plants and trees that could potentially have healing effects. So I'm wondering if there's some subtle exchange program going on. Maybe
Yeah,
they're subtly um, kind of gifting us these plants or these medicines, or I think they're at the very least they're helping to um, raise the consciousness of humanity so that they might be able in the future to show themselves more openly. But um, I was going to ask, do you know, first of all, your friends, like Frank? So you know all these friends, basically, or several of them from from your high school, I'm assuming. And I think you mentioned a couple more work with you. Um, do you have any idea what led all of you as a group together to have this experience? Why were you as a
yeah.
group chosen in particular? Do you think it's something to do with your level of consciousness or perhaps your connection to these beings, perhaps on a spiritual level as
It
well?
could be like like we're a soul group that we had failed missions in the past, and Mary Rodwell helped me figure that one out, but with a regression. But we were hanging out a lot. We'd see each other almost every day. We're very different people, but in the regression, I said that we were in Atlantis. We were trying to wake people up. We were trying to tell people the system was evil. Um, we saw that there was utter destruction coming if we didn't have our frequencies rise, if we didn't have spirituality over technology, that society was doomed. And we were running around telling people kind of like we are now. And that's why we're back again. So we
Yeah.
were a group back then. We failed our mission. We're back again, trying to do it again, which I
Mhm.
think a lot of us are.
Wow, that's very poetic. Yeah, I do think we kind of repeat these karmic cycles just as we did in the days of Atlantis, and America is kind of on the same trajectory. So hopefully we make the correct choices this time. Adrian, did you want to jump in, buddy? Do you have any questions for Beth about her experience or anything?
Yeah, real quick. So I was just noticing that we can use these opportunities when we share our stories to remember for ourselves. So I was just kind of comparing notes, and one of the things that I put together in the beginning of your sharing was my first memory of contact. There was light, but I hadn't ever considered that it was from a ship. My brain at the time labeled it the moonlight. And I never questioned it until you just said that it was something brighter, like from a vehicle. And I was like, oh, that would make sense because
Mhm.
it was way brighter than the moon, right? I mean,
Yep, that sounds like
so
it.
that's an interesting, yeah. And you actually remote viewed when I made a target of my first contact and you
Mhm.
saw that I was taken up, like that was the ideogram, the movement was in your sense that in your sense it, and you being somebody who has memory of contact and being in ships and a remote viewer, when you just, I mean, just on a personal note, when you shared that and used your abilities to see that which I was questioning, it connected a lot of dots for me, and it actually hit a peak at which I wasn't wondering what happened to me anymore. I was just over the hump, and now I was putting the pieces back together. So it went from being able to hold a doubt in my space to now I was done doubting it, and
Mhm.
now I was just ready to know.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fall into this trap where they really key in on something happened, but they still have this space that they allow maybe it didn't happen, right? It's just a little bit of they entertain that thought too. Maybe it didn't happen. I don't entertain that shit anymore. I don't have
I did
time.
that too. I mean, because then all of a sudden after I was done talking to that guy, I was back in my body, but I just thought I woke up and it was only 2:05. So you don't go to sleep, have those insane dreams and wake up in 5 minutes. Because I looked at the clock too when I left, 2:05 when I was wide awake again. I said that was a weird dream. So in my mind, I just thought total dream until the phone rang the next morning. And the first person to call me was Ellen. And she said, "What did you think of that? That was awesome. What a gift." And I said, "What happened?" Because I wanted to believe. I'm like, okay, these guys are messing with me. What happened? And she told me exactly what
Sorry,
was
is
happening.
Ellen your friend's mom? Is that who she is?
Bonnie is my friend's mom.
Oh, okay.
Ellen is
That's
my
Bonnie.
friend.
So Ellen's your
They're both
friend
old
from high
people
school.
names. Yeah.
Okay.
Ellen's my friend from after high school. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
we met at, she was an aerobics person, but I met her at aerobics. Anyway, so no, Ellen called me and she said what she verified everything. I said, "Who did you see? Where were we?" She same thing. She remembered everything. Her mother, I still thought it was a dream. I go, "Oh, cool, we shared a dream. Isn't that cool? We shared a dream." And she's like, "It wasn't a dream though." And I go, "Yeah, it was a dream." Her mom called me, same thing. It wasn't a dream. I'm like, whatever. We all had a cool dream together because we could astral project. Why couldn't we dream together? But so I'm still thinking this. But then Frank called me, and then he's the one that made me realize that it wasn't a dream because he said it wasn't a dream. I was walking at 2 in the morning. I was
Yeah.
walking, and he goes, "I thought it was a truck with its headlights on me." So I turned around to flip the guy off, and I was on the ship with you. And I said, "Okay, if that's real, then what did you say to me?" Because I didn't tell Ellen any of that. I didn't tell it, only I knew that. And he goes, "This is fucking awesome." I'm like, "Okay, dude." And then he goes, "And then those jerks dropped me off 3 miles away from where they picked me up. So it took me forever to get back home." He goes, "I just only slept for a couple hours." So, and one person didn't remember, which was one of the Joes. He didn't remember, but he said we saw him there, but he totally didn't recall. He was drinking alcohol and smoking weed the night before. Not to throw him under the bus, but that's probably why he didn't remember. And then the two guys I worked with, Ellen also worked with them when I came into work. They were totally freaked out. I don't know why they were freaked out, but they were freaked out. They did not have it just made them
Yeah.
the loss of control, even though they had to have consented. It was just too much for them. So they didn't want to talk about it. But Ellen's like, "Yeah, they were there too. They remember, but they don't want to talk anything about it." So it's
Wow.
weird
That's
how people can
interesting.
have the same experience, but one person doesn't remember. Everybody else thinks it's great, but two are freaked. It's just the weird where they're at, I
Yeah.
guess.
So your friends remember, your friend's mother also remembers, and she
Oh,
spoke to
yeah.
you, Bonnie, the psychic. The
Yep.
two people at work are freaked out, and there's only one out of that whole crew who doesn't remember,
To
and that's
this
probably because he
day,
was drunk and smoking weed.
Scott.
So
Yeah.
everyone don't drink and smoke
If you want to have an
too much
experience, remember
marijuana
it.
because you might miss the most incredible experience of benevolent contact.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty amazing. So, do, are you still in touch? Well, are you still in touch with Frank, with Ellen, with possibly with Bonnie?
With
Are,
Frank,
yeah,
for
okay.
sure. Ellen, we can't find her. So Ellen, her name at that point, I'm gonna dox her. No, her last name's Ellen Sabota. I've been looking for her forever, but that was her married name. I can't find her. She was in Crystal Lake the last time I knew Illinois, but she'd gotten divorced after we kind of fell out when I moved up here to Minnesota. And it was like I moved up here in 91, so not too long after that. And then we just went our separate ways and never kept in contact. So I've been looking for her on the internet. I've been looking for her on Facebook. She's not on there. She's just kind of like just gone.
Wow. But you're still in contact with Frank, and of
Oh
course,
yeah.
does he ever want to come? Did anyone besides you ever come forward and talk about
Yet
this?
nobody's come forward. Frank said he would. Mary got a hold of him. Mary Rodwell
Yeah.
emailed him for veracity purposes, she said, and he sent her an email back and she sent me a copy of it. And we've talked a few times, Frank and I have afterwards, but I said, is it okay if I use your name and I give your email out to Mary who's going to contact you? And he said, sure. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's incredible. So many people who remember the same experience. That doesn't tell you something. I don't know what will. But yeah, it's very important not to automatically dismiss these experiences as dreams because I
yeah,
find that when, and many other experiencers also say this, that when we have these kind of experiences, they might be on higher kind of planes of reality or higher levels of frequency, kind of higher bands of frequency. And when we come back kind of to this reality, it might feel like dreamlike in nature, or we might not even remember the full experience or only remember snippets. So I think it's very important to kind of accept that it sounds like this was physical contact, but judging by what um,
well,
your friend
Frank
was
for
saying,
sure.
Frank was saying, yeah, about him being
Yeah.
teleported. But it's also very important for us to kind of accept these higher levels of reality that exist just beyond kind of our normal perceptual range or perceptual bandwidth. And I do believe, like you were saying, that about consent. I do believe that you consented probably both on you did consent on a conscious level, but I think probably on a higher level, your souls have also consented to even those who are freaked out to kind of participate in this experience and have this experience of benevolent contact with these allegedly with these Arcturian beings, these very spiritually advanced beings, and also psychic beings who are able to speak telepathically, and we hear that a lot with contactees. You cannot disregard the spiritual experience, the spiritual aspects of contact, and also the aspects of raising your consciousness, because so too many people just want to kind of pigeonhole the UFO phenomenon, and this is what has been done for decades as kind of just this nuts and bolts, purely physical thing. But what we're finding out through experiences such as yourself is that contact and spirituality, for lack of a better word, or the ability to kind of raise your consciousness or raise your perceptual bandwidth into higher unseen realms, they're intimately intertwined. They go hand in hand. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I say write
Adrian.
down your dreams too. I mean, this is so important too, even if you
Mhm.
want, don't think you're being that annoying person that always talks about your dreams, but it is really important to write down your dreams. And if you dream about another person, try to get a hold of that person and just say, what did you dream about without being if you're friends with them, I guess it'd be kind of weird if you weren't, but a lot of times you guys are having experiences together. I found out lots of people are meeting in the
Mhm.
dream space and it might
Right.
not even be dream space, you just don't know.
Yeah. I think, that's what Robert Monroe is saying too. When we go to sleep, we might not even be in our body or consciousness, or higher aspects of our consciousness might be traveling, doing all sorts of cool missions, because we're multidimensional beings, and we're at a point where we're reawakening kind of our multidimensional nature and connecting with these other aspects of ourselves that may exist in other places, other times, kind of our other reincarnational selves, which might not even be human. Because I think we're not only connected to these beings on a physical level, because like you said, they've been here forever. I think anyone who has researched kind of this phenomenon and hears the stories from so many indigenous tribes, whether it be the Aboriginal Australians, the Native Americans, the Dogon people of Africa, they all say that these sky people came down and gave them knowledge and possibly even, as is alluded to in the Sumerian texts, tinkered with their genetics. And I think they've been involved in humanity since our inception as a species, and they are intimately linked to us on a genetic level, but not only on a genetic level, also I believe on a spiritual level as well. So, uh, so do you believe that you are kind of linked to these beings on kind of a soul level? Do you view them as sort? Because we hear this talk in the community about star family, about possible these beings being linked to other reincarnational existences that we might have had. You could say in the past, but ultimately, I believe time is non-linear. So maybe
Like
that
I
we're
could be up
currently
there right
having.
now. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, I feel
yeah,
like
exactly.
I've been there before. I feel like I'm very connected to them and other, not just these guys, but other beings. I feel like I've been at least 10, 12 different types of not
Hmm.
human, whatever that we are. I guess I would consider them human too, just a different variation of us, and they could be future us. But yeah, I definitely feel linked to them. Not to put a label on them, but uh, there's so many different types out there and we've probably
Yeah.
been all of them. To be honest, we're ancient, they're ancient, but we're also ancient. So.
Yeah. And for people who continually ask, where's the proof? Where is the evidence? Well, I think by the very nature of asking that question and being so left brain, you're kind of denying yourself of the possibility to have these experiences because I think what is shown is that they're not going to kind of violate the time directive of free will and kind of show up over a city unannounced because we're just not ready for that spiritually on a consciousness level. But once we kind of raise our vibration and get more spiritual for lack of a better word, open our minds and open up our hearts and our consciousness, and we can have these types of experiences. Because people are missing the fact that there's an interdimensional portal that we all are carrying around, and it's not somewhere out there. It's in here and also in here, what the ancient cities of India have talked about. So, Adrian, I don't want to hog the mic. Did you have any other questions for Beth? Oh, Adrian, you're on mute. Yeah,
That helps.
yeah,
It was my throat chakra. It
yeah.
was it was physically manifesting as being muted. Um, I was curious, Beth. Two things. One, it seems like this process of discovery, for me anyway, is ongoing, and from time to time, I sit down working on it, and sometimes I pick it up, and I'm just wondering where you're at with your process as far as remembering and knowing, and if there's anything that you're currently working on, abilities or memory or anything in that arena.
Well, I think that tier 3 has been extremely helpful. So many questions only brought more questions. As I get the answers to those, that opens up 10 more questions. So I'm really working on so many things I never even thought were possible before. And yeah, there's a lot of things I'm working on, a lot of the different programs um, that maybe have been involved in my life or I've been involved in. Um, like, yeah. So I'm looking into that. I'm really interested in remote viewing. That's a neat. I think that we can manifest with that. Um, I do believe that a lot of us in this group have worked together many times or are working together, not just here. What else? I like Mark, I want to write and you both have written books. I want to write a book too yeah. So that's something maybe I'll do, but uh, right now it's remembering things that I didn't even know I was really interested in Tony's story. I was like, oh, that's neat. But then the more I listen, the more I'm like, oh God. And yeah, that's a whole nother lane that I had no idea, but it's eye-opening. And when you hear truth, when you hear people speaking their truth, you know it.
Yeah.
There's no benefit to saying I was involved in this or that happened to me. There is no benefit. And there is no benefit in me telling this alien story, but it's to wake other people up. It's like it's time to wake up. I had a dream 3 nights ago that I was walking around blowing a whistle blowing in a red suit, and we were all, and I think you guys were in it, and we were blowing whistles and screaming at people, and they were sleeping. And
Hmm.
a few would wake up and they'd get mad at us and they'd go back to sleep, and we just blow the whistle again. And
Yeah.
they just go back to sleep because they didn't want to hear it. They just didn't want to hear it. But a few woke up. That was a really weird dream.
Yeah. Well, that's your higher
It
self
wasn't a
trying to tell you
dream.
something. Wasn't
Were you doing it
it?
too? Do you do that? Did you? I was out in the astral screaming, hey.
Well, I
I
feel
mean,
like this is that now. That
mhm.
this is some symbolizes what we're doing now is we're vocalizing and we're plugging into the grid by having this conversation. It will be available for anybody to plug in and activate when they want to. And it and whoever chooses to resonate at this frequency, it is waking them up. And not everybody likes the experience of waking up. It's not always fun. So the resistance and the people going back to sleep and being irritated seems like a given for what we're doing. Some people are going to be irritated. Some people are going to be relieved, like, oh, space to breathe again. Oh, yeah, I remember breathing.
Yeah. I mean, just to follow up on that, I mean, yeah, I think, there's a reason why we're here talking now, why we had this idea to create this podcast, why so many people are out there speaking up, why information such as this has been coming out really for the past decade and is becoming more and more accepted in the mainstream. People like David Grush coming out talking about the crash retrieval program, which really was already spoken about by top military whistleblowers several decades ago. So we're just kind of rehashing the same things, but at least we're getting the conversation going and it's getting into the mainstream consciousness. And it's been a lesson really for I think for each and every one of us, and probably most people listening could relate. Most of us are probably the black sheep in our family. Beth, I'm sure that you could expand on this if you want, but I'm sure that because you've been public about this story, and I'm sure there have been people who might have questioned you or especially early on, or maybe thought that you were crazy. But really, what's crazy is kind of accepting this kind of false paradigm, these this bag of uh, lies, for lack of a better word, that we've been fed, that were kind of just a random accident that appeared from nothing, and we have no higher purpose on this planet. There's no other beings out there who could assess. We have no um, kind of models to look up to, such as these Arcturian beings, to aspire towards as a species. So really, I think we're all on this mission together to help raise consciousness, but we have to do it sort of in a slow, methodical way. And we can't get angry, maybe with family members who don't understand. I think that's one of our biggest lessons. It just patience and learning that everyone will accept this kind of at their own rate. But the truth is inevitable, and truth doesn't need to be defended. All we have to do is kind of speak it, and people will accept it and come to terms with these higher realities at their own rate and in their own time. Because some people just aren't ready for this yet. But yeah, yeah, I did want to ask, like, have you shared this with your family or any of your friends, and how did they react to that?
I love that, by the way. Truth doesn't have to be defended. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's awesome. But no, yeah, well, my mom was right there when I was getting the phone calls the next day. She
Mm,
was sitting in the kitchen with me and she's like, "What's happening?" I got all these people calling at 8 in the morning and I'm jumping around them in the kitchen, being a dork, getting all excited. And yeah, I got taken by a UFO, mom, gotta go to work. And then I just go out the door and she's like, what happened? But so I told my mom. My mom's known since day one.
mm,
I don't think she ever told my dad until recently, which he's
mm,
kind of whatever. And I've told my siblings, all of them. My youngest sister's like 16 years younger than me, so she remembers me telling her it over. She's like, your story has never changed since I can recall you ever telling it. Like all my siblings are like, yeah.
mm,
My kids know, both my boys know. I did tell my younger son that if you ever have a ship come or something and you don't want to be taking, say, I do not consent. He was successful with that. About 6 months
mm,
ago, a light came outside his window and levitated him off the bed, and he was scared. And he
mm,
said, I do not consent, and it dropped him. So
mm.
he said, and he didn't, I don't think he really believed until it happened to him. And that's usually when they believe. And he's like, thank you for telling me that. He goes, I was terrified. And I remember you telling me that. And yeah, so and I started telling friends at work, which maybe a year and a half ago, just a few friends. One friend started laughing at me, but then uh, once the Grush and all the congressional stuff came out, she's like, oh my God, don't you feel so much better now that they came out and you're not crazy? I'm like, I never thought I was crazy. I mean, you maybe did, but I never thought I was crazy. I knew I was telling the truth. She goes, don't you feel validated? And I said, I don't care. It's truth. I mean,
Yeah.
so she accepted it after the government told her it was okay to accept it.
Mm, yeah.
So,
I was told years ago during a visionary experience these words, in a world of illusion, speak the truth. So that's what I'm trying to do now. That's what we're all doing. And I think for anyone listening, you should speak the truth without fear of ridicule or people thinking you're crazy, because truth is truth. And it's hard to kind of explain to some maybe family members or friends that eventually at a certain point this is more than just a belief system. This is direct experience, direct knowing. And I think we're entering into an age of direct knowing, indirect experience, but we have to be ready for it. I think so many people, and I think we're in sort of a control matrix, for lack of a better word, with so many different distractions and bread and circuses and people, we're just so distracted that sometimes we don't even take the time to look within ourselves and also look up at the skies. But once we kind of do that, once we look within ourselves, uh, embark on our own spiritual journey of raising consciousness and perhaps initiating contact with these beings through what's termed CE5 uh, events, kind of initiating events through raising our consciousness, as Dr. Stephen Greer talks about, then we can also have these direct experiences. So that's what's so fascinating, and I think it's we're entering into an age where people talking about this stuff, they're not going to be the crazy ones. They're going to be the sane ones. And everyone kind of who's just believed the media, believed the Matrix, just thought that that was all there is. Like, I'm not going to say they're crazy, but they've been limiting their bandwidth of experience. And we have to have enough humility as a species to kind of throw away everything that we thought we knew, because really we know nothing, and hence be open to other experiences, higher levels of experience, because how much visible light can we see, right? A tiny fraction of the visible spectrum. What's really out there? We're just encapsulated in this tiny planet, like in the in the Milky Way galaxy, in this tiny bubble of reality. But there's probably a reason why they don't want to kind of many species don't want to interact with us. So that was a little rant, but had to get that out there. Did they tell you anything about disclosure, by the way, or about when humanity is
Yeah,
going to wake up? um, to this probably on a grander level because many people are saying that there's going to be some huge disclosure event soon. I'm wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
they gave me a math equation, so that's super cool.
Mhm.
It's not cool, but they gave me a math equation. Basically, I talked to Brooks Agnew about it. I showed him the math equation. It's involving sine and distance from galactic center divided by time or yugas equals change is what it was. So a sine wave, and then you multiply distance from galactic center, Earth's distance from galactic center divided by yugas equals change, meaning our elevation.
Mhm.
It's
Do you have
so
that
it's
written
like,
down, right? So you
yeah.
were given this by the Arcturian beings?
It was, yeah, or from the ship that I'm connected to
Right, right, right. Adrian,
that
did
I
you want to
got.
pull up that other picture? Because I think we could go into that a little bit. So Beth, you have
Yeah,
a
that's where I got this. Okay, so when I did my
yeah,
regression with Mary, um, this
Mary
flat,
Rodwell.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mary Rodwell, this vision, I could see a craft. It was at the bottom of the south of Eglin Air Force Base. So if you're as a crow flies or as the Astral flies, if you're flying over Eglin Force Base into the Gulf of Mexico and you go straight down, right, maybe 20 miles south of Eglin, Pensacola area,
Mhm.
straight down into the silt. I saw either the corner of a portal, corner of a Stargate, but it was glowing and waking up and it was moving. And so I saw these, like, I tried to do my best with whatever letters were on their hieroglyphics. That's the edge of the Stargate or ship. Anyway, that thing and many others around the world and around the galaxy are sending out these little sensors or beacons to measure frequency, overall Earth frequency, humanity frequencies to see,
Right.
and then it's taking it back and doing an equation with it to see if we're at the level of being able to handle ascending or going to the next level. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like and it also has tech in there that we
Mhm.
could use. We hid it, we hid that stuff for ourselves in future times. Like I believe maybe in Atlantean times, we saw the cataclysm coming and we hid stuff around so that we can help us now, because we saw this was going to happen again as a cycle. So maybe this time we can get past it, you know. But I think we are basically right on the edge. We are there. We are so close. I think we're waking up. I think we're the revelation, not to get biblical, but the revealing is now. Everybody, the veil's lifted. Humanity's definitely waking up. And
Yeah.
the main thing I got was unity, 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 um, love above all, forgiveness, and then
Yes.
we can raise up. I mean, we've all been hurt. We've all been um, victimized, but it's time to put that down, put that aside, and unite for a common good and get above it because there's some awesome things coming, and only we can make it happen. So
Beautifully said. Just beautifully
thanks.
said. Yeah, we have to get onto a kind of a planetary, unified level of consciousness. Well, we are
Sure.
already all a part of the unified level of consciousness. I think it's kind of just becoming aware of that essential unity, not only with between ourselves, but also with the planet, with all the animals, with the universe as a whole. And abilities such as remote viewing prove that. They prove that all points of time and space are interconnected and we can sort of access any point of time and space. We're living in kind of a unified, entangled quantum field, if you will. And yeah, we had love and unity and forgiveness. So that's truly the answer, even if it's the cliche that is truly the answer. And we must get less in here, especially for men. Like we have to move out of our mind, our thinking mind, and more in here, more into this direct knowing, because our hearts are intimately connected, I believe, to our higher selves and to um, our soul or and this unified field of consciousness. So that is where we can access these sort of higher realms of existence.
I was going to say too, um, kind of as a general PSA, the tests and are going to be harder and harder and harder. So I'm telling everybody just to learn to roll with things and stay higher than it's going to get crazy out there is what I'm saying. And don't get pulled into the drama and stay
Mhm.
higher and don't get triggered and don't get divided and just stay higher than what they're shooting low right now. And they're trying to take you down. They're trying to take and not figuratively what happened on Saturday, but I mean literally they're trying to take us out. The
Mhm.
dark ones are trying to take us out, bring us down, and we've just got to stay above it and know that's not our reality. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's not our future, and we don't consent to it.
Yeah, this is an initiation, and I feel like,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, what happened a couple days ago was
Mhm.
also, worldwide near assassination attempt. That's, people are really triggered right now, and people are really divided, and that's only going to increase closer to the American election, of course. But
And they
we
did it
have
during
to,
the
yeah.
cremation of care of
Mhm.
Bohemian Grove. They did the assassination at the same time as that ceremony was going on. So you know that was a dark agenda. That was something they were trying to. So we as light beings need to nullify it, put it out and see above that. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but it's just going to come faster and faster as the quickening comes because it's time that we're ascending. So they're
Yeah.
going to try hard to keep us down.
Yeah, it's an initiation. And yeah, we've been seeing that these past few years.
Hmm.
Basically, everything is coming to the surface. The darkness is coming to the light. Everything is inverted.
Hmm.
We're seeing through the illusions, through the mind control, blatant mind control and media propaganda, and people aren't falling for it anymore. And luckily, there is already a mass awakening, uh, it currently in process, and this initiation is not finished. We're going to continue, but we have to be kind of the eye of the storm, and we have to face our challenges and learn from them and react with forgiveness and love instead of anger and hate, because that will break the cycles, the constant cycles of humanity fighting against each other, being played one group versus another, these constant, I think, karmic cycles. And we need to break out of that. And we do that again, tying it back to love and forgiveness. And I think only then will some of these more higher spiritual beings kind of uh, be able to contact us on a more mass level. But yeah, that's really well said what you said, Beth. Because yeah, things are they might get ugly, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's how I feel. There is a
Hmm.
point where I think as a planet we're going to be initiated and all come together. Um, so and that's, we see evidence with that everywhere, the mass awakening, and that's why we're all in the same remote viewing group, for instance, and we're all led here together for a reason. And for those who don't know, Beth was referencing Tony earlier, Tony Rodriguez. For anyone who really wants to know what's been happening in our solar system, I highly recommend you read his book, a series Colony Cavalier. A huge red pill there. Just goes into so much of the dark stuff that's been happening, but also ends on sort of a positive note. So there's both dark and the light. Well, the darkness needs to be exposed in order for the light to kind of shine through. Um, I did want to ask Beth about yeah, your connection with Tony as well, because I know you were one of the first in the tier three in his group, if
Yeah.
not the first, if I'm not mistaken. And you could kind of go into, if you want, like some experiences with that group, some meditation experiences or healing or remote viewing experiences.
Yeah, so yeah, I've been there for I think over 2.5 years, and that was when Jackie was still with it, running the group, and they did the what's called the Purple Series, and it's a way of getting into that meditation. It's just like a very in-depth Monroe type meditation technique, but and then it's turned the one of the most profound things I've found is our healing. So everybody knows prayer works. So we had to just recently, and he put it in his last book, is my granddaughter was having eczema, and we've gone to all the doctors. She 80%, she was just really bad bleeding. She was only like 6 months. She started when she was 2 months old. 6 months old, she's just bleeding and having problems. And none of the doctors could figure it out. And I just said, can we put her as a focus of healing? And that night, um, the group meditated and prayed over her. And honestly, I swear, the next day she woke up and she was 80% better. I mean, she still had some of the eczema, but like everything, it was crazy. It was insane. So all I can say is that that's in great testimony. It worked. It was on an infant, so it wasn't like placebo because she didn't know she's 6 months old. It worked. I mean, so there's a lot of things like that, but that's one of the most objectively verifiable thing that I can think of that's happened. And then just the meeting everybody on a whole different level in our group meditations is amazing. Finding out how big we are spiritually is amazing, and what we can do, and how much of a common story a lot of us have that I know that's why we're there. So, part of it anyway, that's what originally attracted us. But it's just amazing. It's such a great family. I highly recommend anybody that can get in there, read the book, see Tony, I meet up with him. He's legit. He's awesome.
Yeah, Tony's awesome. Shout out
Mhm.
to Tony. Truly speaking truth.
Yeah.
And you as well, Beth, and you as well, Adrian. We're all, I think, on this mission together, to kind of speak truth in a world of illusion and helping to awaken and raise the consciousness of the planet, even if some people don't understand. And that's perfectly fine. That's one of our lessons. We have to be okay with people not understanding, and we have to meet everything ultimately with love and forgiveness, because that's going to transmute the darkness and break these cycles of perpetual division and perpetual hate and anger. We have to break all those cycles and come together as one planet and realize that we've been manipulated and literally pitted against one another. Um, so yeah, I don't really have any other questions. Adrian, do you have any questions for Beth or?
I just really appreciate Beth coming on and doing this with us and waking people up. And hopefully, everybody who's listening can have a great takeaway from their time listening to this.
Tell
Yeah,
your
Beth,
story, guys.
is there
Everybody.
anything you want to add, Beth? Sorry, I
No, I
just
was just gonna say, as I'm ripping my shirt off, I was just gonna say, everybody, just get out there, tell your truth, tell your story. Don't worry about getting laughed at. It does kind of suck sometimes, but um, there's a reason it happened to you. You
Mhm.
need to share it, and you might help someone else out.
Yeah, you will be rewarded by speaking truth and or your truth in this face of ridicule. So,
Right.
and it's no longer a laughing matter, you know. And this has been talked about for um, millennia, first of all, by almost every indigenous culture, these sky beings, and recently with all these military whistleblowers, even going back to the 1940s with the Colonel Philip Corso, who, by the way, he did claim to directly meet a gray being face to face. And he also, in his memoir published right before his death, and he claimed to have reverse engineered the parts from the Roswell crash from the 1940s, which now is finally being corroborated by other people like Rush, who said, yeah, the Roswell crash was real. So, what do you think they've been doing with those reverse engineered craft that they've been experimenting on in their secret labs, according to Corso and Rush? Yeah, they've been developing secret programs that the public is largely unaware about. And I think we'll go into that more in future episodes, but just something to leave you with. Yeah, Beth, if yeah, just incredible experience, incredible uplifting experience or contact experience, the healing experience. Um, and you know, I've had experience with my own family, because we did use the group meditation. We meet every Wednesday night for a group meditation, and it could be on healing targets. And I use that to help my mother-in-law recover from a stroke, and she's had a miraculous recovery, just like your grandson. So so yeah, it's really was it your grandson or was it
It was a
um
granddaughter. She identifies
granddaughter?
as a granddaughter.
Granddaughter, yeah, granddaughter.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean, this stuff is not just woo woo. There's published scientific data in major scientific journals. John Hagelin, the quantum physicist John Hagelin, he talks about this, about the Maharishi effect. It's a real scientifically validated effect of group consciousness and group meditation to affect the physical world, because ultimately all the physical world is founded upon consciousness. Consciousness is the only thing you could truly know, and consciousness is everywhere in everything, or at least at the root of everything. We're living in a unified field of intelligence, a quantum field. And you know, we also see that with the remote viewing experiments that we've been participating in. So we were also, all three of us here, were part of the remote viewing group, and we do that by getting by getting six-digit numbers, knowing nothing about the target, and then doing a scientific methodology on those numbers to acquire perceptions about the target that we know consciously nothing about until it's revealed afterwards. So we've also been having great success with that, largely in Tony's group. So we know that these abilities are real, that these experiences are real, and that we're currently in a time of awakening and reactivating. And um, thank you so much, Beth, for unless there's anything more you want to add, thank you so much for telling your story, and keep on telling it. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Much success. And I appreciate you having me on as your first guest. I'm so honored. Can't
Yeah,
wait
come
for
back again too.
I will. All right, guys. Thank you.
Love you.
Love you
Love you.
too.
Thank you.